So, you may ask yourself, or you may ask me, dear instructor, what in fact caused the Civil War? Well, what I would say to you is sectional differences.
Yo, Mr. Wallace, I'm gonna let you finish, but this is the best video of all time. Of all time!
Easy now, no need to go down. Rock that run, that this how we frown. Easy now, no need to go down. Easy now, no need to go down. Rock that run, that this how we frown.
Anybody down there?
Oh, Grandpa, wait, I'm helping you.
Yes, I need help. I'm an old man. What's your name, little girl?
I'm not a girl.
You're not a girl. Then
What are you thinking, Grandpa?
What are you doing helping me if you're not a girl? Well, I ask you a question. What's your name?
Felix.
Felix. That's a cat's name. Well, thank you, Felix. I appreciate
You're
the help.
welcome, Grandpa.
Well, you young cupcake faces, how you been this past year? Good.
Grandpa! How are you?
Well, I guess I'm doing okay for an old man. Well, it's getting late. Your grandmother wants you to be in bed and sleeping pretty soon, so as is tradition when you come to our house over Christmas, I'm here to tell you a bedtime story.
Yay!
So, what do you want to hear tonight, you nebs? Do you want to hear knights in shining armor, pirates, cowboys, and Native Americans? What will it be tonight?
Grandpa, you ever tell us how you lost your sight?
Oh, so you want to hear how I lost my eyesight in a war? It was called the Civil War. And it's hard to believe it happened right here in this very country of ours.
Whoa!
It's a terrible war. Terrible war.
But Grandpa, who was fighting in the war?
Who was fighting? Well, before you get to who was fighting, you have to understand what the country was like at that time. What the situation was. You had the people up north, industrialized, fairly rich. Then you had the agrarian, that means farming south. They were poor. Then you had the wild, wild west. That was the frontier out there.
So, Grandpa, why would people from the same country want to fight against each other?
Well, it's because the country's so large and the diversity of those three different types of regions that people just couldn't seem to get along together. They couldn't work things out. These were important things too, and they just couldn't reach some agreements.
Work harder!
Here's the daily newspaper, boss.
Thanks for the brief.
Good. Good.
Oh, my bets on the horse races have paid off.
Are you gonna keep the monies, boss?
I think I'm gonna donate my winnings to the Episcopal Church.
Cool.
What? This Kansas Nebraska Act is preposterous! They can't seriously put the issue of expansion of slavery to popular sovereignty. Least of all, with the newest territories to join the Union, the ones that will shape the Union's future. I thought the Fugitive Slave Act was bad enough, but this is taking it too far. I suppose there's no viable alternative to letting the South have their peculiar institution, as necessary and evil as it may be. But this evil can't be allowed to spread. Surely Uncle Tom's cabin has taught the country better than this. This puts my father's memory to shame. Father, I know they abolished slavery here, but I wish we could just get slaves to do this work for us, like they do in the South.
James, you should be thankful that Samuel Slater came up with his cotton mills. I mean, if we wouldn't have had them, we would have had twice as much work to do. And remember what I told you, James. Slavery is wrong. You know that we're above that godless constitution.
But Father, slavery is still legal in the South, isn't it? So it can't be all bad.
Well, look here, son. Slavery is a complex thing. Now, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, but slavery is just awful. Put yourself in the position of the slaves. They were stolen from their homelands in Africa and brought all the way here to America. Now, that international slave trade was outlawed 4 years ago, but slavery is still around. They work all day in terrible conditions with barely any food and no pay. And they're whipped for the slightest mistakes. You go to any plantation in the South and see these poor Negroes working, and you will see what a horrible life they have to live. They have no choice. They're servants for life, and the smallest step out of line can cost them dearly.
That's awful. Why on earth would God allow this? Don't they say in church that we're all God's children? And in school, when they teach us about the revolution, they say that all men are created equal.
Yes, James, we are, but see, we also have an economy to worry about, and sometimes ideals don't translate into reality. Down south, where people are mostly farmers instead of workers like us, the livelihoods depend on cotton. That's why they need the slaves to pick the cotton. Slaves and cotton just go hand in hand. A few years ago, before you were born, slavery was a dying business until Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. It made it easier to process the cotton, and slavery only got bigger than ever. And because they sent the finished cotton up here for textile workers like us, in a way, we need slavery too. So that's why you will hear that slavery is a necessary evil. But since we're all God's children, this evil simply cannot be accepted. You understand what I'm saying, James?
I think so, Father.
Well, let's take a break and play some cards then.
Weatherby, do you have the quarterly profit reports?
We got Mr. Watson. Sorry to say we lost 10% this quarter.
What? 10%? This cannot be! The government's continual compromises on our protective tariffs are leaving my mill woefully vulnerable. My profits have only gone steadily downward since the tariff of 1842 was repealed. If I can't have a strong, centralized government take action to protect the union's industrial centers by establishing some consistent tariffs, international markets will run me dry. What else could go wrong?
Well, boss, I'm sorry to say that another one of those Irish workers, by the name of Sean Whelan, got really hurt bad by trying to work the textile machinery, and he was drunk. And now all the Irish workers are protesting about the working conditions.
Those Irish, what am I going to do with them? Those lazy Catholic filths. All they do is drink. The government won't use tariffs to protect my market, and now my own incompetent workforce is costing me even more. And they have the audacity to protest my working conditions? Why prohibition was ever repealed, I'll never know. Temperance is what we need in order to have a successful economy. This influx of drunk Catholicism is a plague upon our union.
Aye, Mr. Watson.
Perhaps I could replace those Irishmen and have a respectable workforce that would help my profits, if internal improvements weren't encouraging potential workers to migrate westward. Ever since the Manifest Destiny craze, the government has been ardently supporting westward expansion by funding railroads and canals, and my worker pool is slowly draining out into the west.
Sorry for